Hi, my name is Tiffany Coleman, and it is a pleasure to have you here with me today. I have a special guest, as you can see. Her name is Krissy Anderson, and just a little bit about Krissy. She is a literal homegirl of mine. She resides in Virginia as well. She holds a bachelor's degree from Longwood University and a master's degree from my alma mater, Virginia Union University. We were in school together getting our master's degrees. And she is the newly hooded Reverend Dr. Krissy Anderson.
Hallelujah.
She has just completed her work, her doctoral work, on self love, and she is a graduate of the class of 2020. It is with pleasure and honor that I do welcome Ms. Krissy Anderson here today. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here today.
Absolutely, absolutely. When I found out what you were working on, I was like, she's got to be on the show. She has to. We have to have her on the show, so that we can talk about all of this. And as was stated in your introduction, you did some powerful work on self-love, which I think is a crisis that we are not talking about in this country. COVID-19 for sure is a crisis, and there are other political crises going on. But I think one of the things that we are lacking in this country is a lack of self love.
Absolutely.
And so, just kind of wanted to get a little bit more insight from you. First of all, what is your doctoral work called? And then what led you to the work of self love?
Okay, so the title of my work is Reclaiming Redemptive Agency. It's a process model for creating a mind shift from self-negation to self-confirmation, self-love.
Mm,
And meaning in itself that I am responsible for how I feel about me and that I am the most important person to me. And how do I build on that? How do I work on that? So it's quite interesting that you asked me how I got to this work. So I'm going to try and make a super long story kind of short, but
okay.
not miss out on any details.
Uh-huh.
So I have to be 100% honest. When I started this project, it started out as how do I blame the church for how it's feeling about me and a relationship that I stayed in far too long. I
Oh.
interesting enough, we graduated on May 10th of 2014. At
Mm-hmm.
about noonish, we were done. At 4 o'clock that afternoon, I got married.
Wait,
And
wait,
yeah,
wait a minute. You got married the day we graduated?
I got married the same day we
Are
graduated.
you kidding? How
Yes.
did I not know this?
It was really quiet because it was just immediate family and him and my family.
Okay.
And it was a decision that we had made along the way because I've been in school, finances weren't the best, we wanted to move in together, all that good stuff. So a few people knew about it, but not a lot of people that I was in school with knew about it.
Okay. So I don't
Partly
hate you
because
anymore. Okay. All right.
yeah, very few people knew about it, so don't feel bad. But and it happened to be someone that I went to high school with, and I was still in love with them from high school. Is really how it all played out. We not seen each other in like 16 years, got back in contact with each other like 4 years prior to this, dated for that 4 years. And when he asked me about a date, I was like, I don't know, didn't know. And I was in my second year at the time. He was like, how about the day you graduate? And I looked at the calendar and I was like, okay, we can do that. It was 4 days before my birthday. A lot of
Okay.
stuff going on.
Yay.
Graduation, birthday was
Okay.
coming, all that kind of stuff.
Just one big
And
party.
so yeah. So got married, lived here for a while, but within the first 3 months, he had actually put his hands on me. And I was flabbergasted, didn't know what to do. Do I leave? Do I stay? What do I do? And at the time, I was just a licensed
Okay.
minister. I wasn't ordained, been in church all my life, been under the whole, you stick there, you never leave, you don't walk out, you figure it out, you work it out, you make it work, all that good stuff.
Okay.
And I was
For what? Now, for those who may be watching and may not understand, when you say he put his hands on you, what do you mean by that?
Literally, hand to the face kind of stuff.
Oh, and he
Literally.
and he didn't have a funeral that day as well? We weren't.
No, no. So, and you know what? Again,
Woo!
this is totally what brought me to this work. So,
Wow.
just to, I really, really want to share the detail with this because somebody needs to know this and somebody needs to hear it. So forgive me if I get emotional. I think I can do it, but
It's
forgive me if
okay.
I get a little emotional.
It's okay.
But this particular day, I came home from work and had purchased items for the house that we needed, and but not something he felt like I should have purchased.
Mm,
And he had a complete meltdown. Never had seen anything like it in my life.
mm,
Okay. I have been very sheltered the majority of my life,
mhm,
been very well loved, and so didn't understand what was happening this particular day. So I was going to leave because I felt it was going to escalate to something that I was not prepared for. And so I got in my car to leave, and he came to the car. He was like, "No, you're not going anywhere," and literally hand palmed me smack in the side of my face. And the first thing I did was dial 911. Okay. So
mhm,
I dial 911. He grabs my phone, hangs the phone up. And I'm in the country. I was in Gum Spring at the time.
mhm,
And in Richmond, they just showed up anyway. In Gum Spring, they did not show up. They
mm.
called back. He was like, dialed the wrong number, was trying to dial 910. And that was the end of that. So I was in my car, had closed my door, and I was like, okay, fine. He opened the door, was trying to take the key out of the switch, bent the key, all kinds of stuff. Then he flipped the switch on me. He was like, well, what is it going to look like? You're a minister. What is it going to look like if you leave me? If you leave me now, then I won't be here when you
Wow.
get back. I mean, just went through this whole plethora of things. And as you can see, I'm not a tiny person. So part of that was, no one else is going to love you like I love you. No one else is going to want to be with you. You think you're
Mhm,
beautiful, but you're not. So I went through this whole mantra of things. And I was just like, what do I do? What do I do? And honestly, by the end of the conversation, I was begging him not to leave me.
mm,
100%. I was like, please don't leave. Please don't go. He wanted to go to the store. I was like, let me take you to the store. Let me do whatever you need. And when we got to the store, I was like, I probably should go stay at my mom's house tonight. You cool? I cool. He was like, if you leave, I'm going to be here when you come back. He was like, I'm going to walk back to the house. And we're in the country. There are no street lights. There are
mm.
no lights between the
Right.
5 miles to get to the store and
Mhm.
getting back to where we were staying. He was like, I'm going to walk back to the house. Mind you, he's straight city boy. He don't know nothing about the country. Okay. I was like, no,
Mm.
no, 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 no. Because see, something be to ate you on the way back home. You be hit by a car. It'll be my fault. So now all these other guilty things are going on.
Yeah.
So to top it off, I told no one about it.
Mm.
Absolutely no one. I shared it with nobody.
Yeah.
And that was, so we got married in May. This happened in November. The next thing that happened didn't happen until like right after New Year's. We
Mhm.
got into this huge argument. So between then and January, anytime we had an argument, he reminded me, you're fat, you're ugly, nobody wants you, nobody will love you on one day. And then on the next day, when he's got his mind together and everything is okay, I love you so much, I respect you. And and I was lost. I was lost. And I didn't know how to talk to anybody about it because again, growing up, you stick, you stay, you deal. And
Right.
so that's what I thought I was supposed to do. I can't leave him because if I leave him, I can't ever get married again. Nobody's ever going to love me. And so when I looked in the mirror, what I saw was what he saw. And that's what I began to speak to myself. That's
Mm.
what I began to say to myself. And the
Mhm.
sad part about it is at 38 years old, which is what I was at the time, my mom, my dad, my brothers have never, ever called me out of my name, never called me a negative name, nothing but who I was. They called me
Yeah.
Chris. And so all of them called me. How this time frame made me see myself this way. But what I realized, and it took therapy for me to get here,
For
and we'll
sure.
get to that in a second. It took
Absolutely.
therapy for me to get to this understanding that even as a child, when I was a military brat. So before I moved here, military, everybody's different. Nobody knows anybody. You don't talk bad about people because you're always the new people.
Mhm.
You're on a military base. Nobody knows how long you're going to be there. You make friends, you hold tight to each other. And then we moved here to Richmond when I was in the 4th grade. And I remember the first week of school, somebody called me fat and ugly. And I had never heard anything like that. I used to
Mm.
military kids who, when you meet new people, you're like this. You're like, yes,
Mhm.
yes, because
Mhm.
you move and you move and you move and you move. You might know somebody for 3 years and then you're gone. So I'd been to
Mhm.
Germany, I'd been to Texas, I'd been to Northern Virginia, and then I come to Virginia. And not only did the people at school talk about me like that, but you walk down the street and back in the day, guys would be nudging, there go your girl, there go your girl,
Right.
somebody that wasn't cute that nobody really wanted because she didn't look
Exactly.
right or what have you. So, you know, I had been dealing with this for years and had not really realized it.
Mhm.
And you're a people pleaser. That's who I was.
Mhm.
Honestly, probably until I turned 42.
I know that all too well.
A people
Yeah.
pleaser. And so I was doing what everybody else wanted me to do. And so here I have built this whole thing thinking that I'm loving myself when in actuality, I am just pleasing people and I was not doing anything for myself. So we ended up in a bigger argument one night. And that night before I went to bed, he was like literally this close to my face. And he said to me, if I said one more word, because I started praying, I was praying out loud because it just praying in my head wasn't working anymore. And I was praying out loud. And he literally got in my face. He was like, if you say one more word, I'm going to beat you. He said, and if
Mhm.
I kill you, I don't care. He said, I
Mhm.
don't care. By the time your brothers get here, whatever, I'll be long gone. I mean, the whole night. And God instantly shut my mouth. Instantly. I got
Wow.
into bed that night to go to sleep. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I get up at 5 to go to work. When I got in the, when I woke up, God was like, you need to text your pastor. So I texted him. I was like, hey, I need to talk to you. I won't be at work until 8 o'clock. I'm safe, but I need you to call me at 8. And the reason I did that, now I know, because I would have just let it go. By the time I got to work, he'd apologize his way out of it. Everything would have been fine. And I would just let it be what it was.
Uh-huh.
And so I got up that morning, I got dressed, and on the way to work, he was like, I love you so much. I'm so sorry. We're going to have arguments. We're going to have discussions. But I had never again, dealt with this particular situation. Got to work, my pastor called me and I told him about November. I told him about the argument. He was just like, have you told your mom? I was like, no, I haven't told my mom, I haven't told my brothers, I haven't told anybody. Nobody knows what I've been dealing with for the last 6 months.
Mhm.
And so he said, you need to go talk to your mom. If you don't go talk to your mom, I'm gonna call her. My mom and I worked in the same building. So told my supervisor I need to go talk to my mom. My mom took me in the conference room. I told my mom what was happening. My mom sat down. She said, have you told your brothers? I was like, no, I have not told my brothers. She was like, I need you to call your brothers. I'm like, oh my gosh. Now I'm calling
It's
everybody
a
and telling
chain of
everybody
command.
what, oh my gosh. Okay. So by the time I talked to my brothers, my pastor's wife does nonprofit work with abused women and things like that. So by the time I got off the phone with them, my mom's brother was at my job to pick me up, to take me to the courthouse to get a restraining order. I got a restraining order. And that night, I'm at my brother's house sleeping. I didn't come here because he knew where I lived. But my brothers went to my job, were at my job when it was time for me to get off to get my car back because he had my
Mhm.
car, everything. So fast forward 6 months and I wasn't talking to him. And then one day he called and I was like, okay, we're going to talk. Well, in this time frame, my job that I had was they did a riff and they were phasing out my position. And I worked with clients. One of my clients I worked with was in North Carolina. Well, lo and behold, when he left, he went back to North Carolina, which is where he used to live, moved back to North Carolina, and the job that they were offering me happened to be in the same city that he was in, the
What?
client that I was working for. I'd always wanted to leave Virginia, and we had talked about going to counseling, doing some work, whatever. So I was going. We were going to be in two separate places, do the work, and decide what we're going to do from there. But I would still be fully employed, be gainfully employed, doing whatever.
Right.
So I was there for a week. Literally, they had put me in an apartment, everything.
Get out.
By the end of that week, he was there. He was in the
Wow.
apartment. We were there. And the first couple of weeks were fine. But
Mhm.
then old habits started again
Right.
and the arguing and all of that kind of stuff. And he's not the kind that it's a two-way argument. He's the kind that I talk, you listen.
He has a
And if I'm
strong
talking
hand
5 hours, you better sit there and listen to me the whole 5 hours. And
Mhm.
then when I'm done, there's nothing else to talk about. So we never went to counseling, none of that stuff. And everything that we've had the entire marriage was in my name. So there was nothing for him to lose in all of this.
Oh,
Nothing.
well, so
Okay.
okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and part of that comes from the way I was raised, be independent, have your own, do your own,
For
don't let
sure.
them, all this kind of stuff. And there's so many other pieces to it. And eventually there'll be a book that'll tell all the stories in between, because there are things that people need to hear and people need to know. But I was afraid to demonize him. I was afraid to say he's a bad person, and the
Mhm.
things that he's doing is bad. All I kept saying was he's still a good person and blah, blah, blah. And I never faced it until I started going to therapy.
Yeah.
And starting to go to therapy, my therapist, one of her first questions was, how do you feel about you? And when we started
Mm.
having this conversation, I really had to face the fact that I didn't care about Krissy. I
Mm.
didn't care about Krissy at all. As long
Mhm.
as no one else's feelings were hurt, as
Yeah.
long as no one else's feelings were destroyed, I did whatever I could not to hurt you. If that meant I spent my last dollar, if that meant that I treated you everywhere we went, all that kind of stuff. But it went back to believing that what
Yeah.
I looked like did not fit what society felt like it should fit. And
Yeah.
I had taken on for myself what society felt about me. And
Yes.
so therefore, I was my own bully. I was my own enemy. I was my own person that was, I don't love me, even though I could see all this beauty, I saw the flaw. And there's only
Yes.
one thing that people point out to me. There's
Yes.
only one thing that people point out to me, and
Yes.
that I'm overweight, my size. And I
Yeah.
got lost in that. Whereas
Mm.
look at the beauty, I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
see that,
Yeah.
and so I had to learn to focus on the creation that I am, that God didn't make junk. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter
Mhm.
what you wear. It doesn't matter what your size. God didn't make junk. And
Yeah.
if God didn't make junk, then I'm good enough just as I am. But how do I start believing that for
Yes.
myself? How do I
Yes.
encourage myself to believe that, and then especially if you live in a house where, little kids, whether it be your daughter or your son, but let's talk about daughters, that you're in the mirror and you're like, oh, this pimple, I'm so ugly because I got this pimple. I'm just ugly until this pimple goes away. And then your little girl, when she sees a bump on her face, she's like, oh, I'm just so ugly. I'm ugly until this bump
Mm.
goes away. But you're
Mm.
not. That bump
Mhm.
is 1.0001. But if I look at these beautiful eyes and this beautiful hair and this beautiful skin,
Mhm.
why don't I look in the mirror and talk about everything that's beautiful all the time,
Yeah.
instead of talking about the one flaw that I
Yeah.
see, that this scratch that's going to be with me for the rest of my life? Oh,
Yeah.
well, what
Yeah.
about all the other goodness that is you? And so that's where it came from, is that I use this example. This is, and hopefully this makes sense to you. So let's say you get up in the morning, you wake up, it is 6:55, you get out of the bed and you stump your toe.
Mm.
Oh my gosh, this toe hurts so bad. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? But after you address it, you fixed everything, you found the shoes that you're going to wear so your toe is comfortable, put them on, figure out everything is good, and you leave out the door, and you forget that your toe hurts until you hit it against something. And you're like, oh man, I forgot all about that. I got to be more careful. But you meet people and you're like, how's your day? You're like, I'm having a great day. Things are so good. I'm having a great day. All is well, right? You make it through
Mhm.
your whole day. So for 5 minutes of that day, you had to worry about your toe and how painful it was. But
Yeah.
from 7 o'clock on, so the other 23 hours and 55 minutes of the day, it was great because
Mhm.
you addressed the toe. But imagine if at 6:55 you stub your toe, right?
Mhm.
You get dressed, you figure out what you're gonna wear, everything is good, and then you go to brush your teeth and you're like, I stubbed my toe this morning, it's gonna be an awful day. And then
Right.
you get
Yeah.
somebody ask you how your day was. Well, I stubbed my toe this morning, so it's the worst day ever, and da 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 da. Your whole day is bad for 5 minutes of something that happened to you. Your
Yeah.
entire day is bad.
Yeah.
And how do you change that? You address what's hurting and you keep moving on. You don't
Mhm.
focus on the thing that's hurting, because if you focus on what's hurting, it continues to hurt and hurt and hurt and hurt and hurt.
Yes, it
And it just
does.
changes your whole day, changes your whole perspective. Well, I take that perspective with myself. Okay. So, yep, I may not have been a person that normally wear jewelry, and I think I'm still cute without the jewelry. But there was a
Mhm.
time I didn't. I thought I needed this jewelry and this certain dress and this certain thing. But it doesn't matter what I put on now. And let's top this off. I have people in my life that, I mean, I have been raggedy. And when I say raggedy, I mean hair doing this,
Of course, I think we
and
all have those moments.
a little sleep in
Yeah.
my eye,
Mhm.
one earring on, one off, ripped t-shirt or something. And somebody's walked up to me, like, you are so beautiful. And I'm just
Mhm.
like, what you see?
Really? Today of all days, really?
The day of all days. Now, every other day when you are popping, right?
Right.
Nobody says
Right.
anything. And this is the
Right.
day you got your shower hair. Mind you, this is my shower hair. This is how I flip my hair when I get out of the shower. And I
Uh-huh.
just left it today, right? But
Uh-huh.
somebody was like, oh my God, your hair is so cute. I'm like, I just, nothing. I didn't do anything with it. What do you mean? It's so cute. But imagine if we look at ourselves that way
Yeah.
every day.
Mhm.
Imagine if you look at yourself that way. And, you know, we're probably going to get here later, but it's a good opportunity to say this right now.
It's okay.
So many of us have a misunderstanding of what humble is,
Yeah.
right? We
Mhm.
think that humble means that I can't share my gifts, and I can't be proud of my gifts, and I can't be proud of who I am or what I am, because then I'm going to sound conceited or narcissistic because it's all about me. But that's not the case. How
Mhm.
do you know I have a gift that you can use, that I can combine with yours, if I never say anything about it? How
Mm.
do I Why can't I share my talents and my gifts with you? It doesn't mean that mine is better than yours. It doesn't mean that mine is more important than yours. But let me let you know that I have it so you can use it accordingly. So I
Right.
have to be okay with saying, if I'm sitting in the audience and somebody says, is there anybody in here that can sing? And I just sit around and I look like this and people raise their hand and I just sit back. Well, maybe nobody is a soprano or an alto and I can sing one of those two parts, but they don't have what they need because I choose to keep my talents to myself because
Mm.
I'm boasting if I tell you what I
Mhm.
have. Or there's some people that struggle with looking in the mirror talking about, I look good. I know I'm cute today, because people think that flows into narcissism. But
Mhm.
it's different when you are talking about your beauty versus I'm beautiful, nobody else is. And if you do anything to destroy my beauty, then I'm going to destroy you because I
Mhm.
need you to know that you ain't that good and you ain't that special. No, 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 no. They're totally different. They don't run in the same realm. There's a totally opposite function that they have. And it's okay for you to look in the mirror every single day, several times a day, and tell yourself that you were created in the image of God. Everything that God made is good. Therefore, I'm good. Let's look at my beauty.
So
Let's
it's a
look at this greatness.
so it's okay to look in the mirror and say that I'm beautiful, and then also admire another woman's beauty, or even another man,
Yes.
and admire
Yes.
their beauty as well. It's
Yes.
enough admiration to go around for everybody.
Yes.
Yeah.
Imagine. Don't let me imagine for a minute. Imagine for a minute. You woke up and you were having a bad morning and you
Mhm.
couldn't get out of it. And then somebody sees you, a woman, another African American female sees you, and she's
Mhm.
like, honey, pick up your face, girl. You looking good today. What happened this morning? What's going on? And you share it, and you get a little pep because they had some pep with you. And then you run into the next one, and she sees that your head's lifted a little bit, and she's like, "Oh, go ahead and lift your head all the way up, girl. You know you fine. Girl, do your thing. Hey, that report that you did last week was wonderful. And we start feeding into each other.
Yeah.
Imagine if we fed into each other. But just like in the word, it says that a person is looking for a friend must first show themselves to be friendly. If you really truly want to love somebody else, you have to learn how to love yourself. You got
Yeah.
to learn how to give yourself a compliment and receive the compliment that you give yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where we struggle. We
Mhm.
struggle with receiving compliments because we feel like we're being conceited or we're not being humble. But if somebody recognizes your gift, if somebody recognizes your talent, regardless of whether they recognize it or not, it doesn't mean that your talent and your gift isn't valid. And that's where we come into redemptive agency, that I've got to remember for myself that regardless of what anybody else says, I love me, I'm important, I'm enough, I'm special, God loves me, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, everything that God made was good. We've got to remember all of those things.
Mhm.
And how do we remember it? I'm responsible for me. One of the arguments that they had when I went to defend was that we need each other, that we work best in community. But I don't feel like I operate well in community because I avoid crowds. because when I'm in a crowd, especially if I'm have the most adipose tissue, which is fat, everybody, if I have the most adipose tissue than anybody else, then I'm uncomfortable because
Mm.
I'm thinking that everybody is looking at my size and not looking at
Mhm.
me. You know,
Mhm.
they're not looking at me. They're looking at my group of friends and thinking how cute and petite and why do they have this oddball with them? Because it's my own self. It's not
Yeah.
them. That's not their idea. You know, there's this movie called Duff, and it's the girl learned that her friends kept her around because she was the ugliest of the
Mm.
group, according to them. And so they were always considered cute next to her. And that movie just smacked me in my face. And I was like,
Mm.
is this how my friends look at me? You know, is this why they keep me around and always want me to go somewhere with them? And if I reflect back through my life, there were some moments where I was the person that went because they knew I was going to stay at the table, so everything would be monitored and they didn't have to worry about their stuff getting stolen. Because I was going to be a wallflower. I wasn't going to get out there because I mean, you know, everybody else in here cute and makeup and all pretty. Today, I'm not that person. Today, I have enough confidence in myself to know it's okay being in a crowd of people. And usually if I'm in that crowd of people, it's because they want me there. It's not
Mhm.
because I'm offsetting something else. But my own thoughts ruined that for me for the
Mhm.
majority of my life. Like at
Mm.
44, I'm just living. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I don't want that for our younger girls or boys. I don't want that for them. And we so often focus on bullying in schools, right? And
Mhm.
how kids bully each other. But we don't look at, and I'm praying I don't step too hard on somebody's toes, but somebody's going to say ouch to this. We don't look at the fact that we've reused words that we shouldn't. Let's talk about bad for a minute, right?
Yeah.
We talk
Yeah.
about somebody looks so bad, but when a child learns the definition of bad, and you might be just saying to your child, "Girl, you so bad," and it's the way we said it that we know we meant you're fly, you're hot, you know, all that other kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
when they learn in school what bad means, they're like, "Wait, my mom calls me bad all the time,"
Mhm.
you know, or slay. To me, slay means to kill. I don't care how you put it. It means that I'm gonna kill something. But when you're dressed to the nines, we use that word, girl, you slaying. Okay, but what are you killing? Help me understand that.
Yeah.
Or your face is beat when
Yeah.
your
A
makeup
face
is on.
beat. I'm always
Oh my
hearing that
goodness.
all the
And
time.
I'm like,
Yes.
what does that mean? Because honestly, I'm gonna tell you my first connotation and correction and connection with that was abused women and how they wear thick makeup
Wow.
because they've been beat. And so they're covering up the bruises and the scars, right?
Mm.
Or even with the face beat, that we're covering up who we are because we've got freckles or we've got craters or we've got something else. And so we beat our faces into being something that they're not. We want
Mm.
them to look better. You know how they used to pinch their cheeks to get the
Mhm.
rosy look, you know? So
Mhm.
those are the things. And then we don't understand when people outside of our culture don't understand how or why we're using the way that we do. But for me, it still has a negative connotation to it. And it's the same thing. You know, what are the nicknames that we give our children? Think about this as well. And I know I'm kind of doing
It's
this,
okay.
but
It's
it's
okay.
so much stuff that comes out of self-love. You know,
Mhm.
imagine being a child growing up in a house and your mom and dad are having this whole knockdown, drag out and calling each other names and the whole nine yard. And a child can walk in and say, "Mommy, Daddy, that hurts." And mom and dad stop instantly, think about what they said, and instantly massage each other and say, "You know what? I totally said things I shouldn't have." And they address that right there in front of that child that heard all that negativity.
Mhm.
Versus they hear all this and you know, you look just like your dad, you act just like your dad, your child does da 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 da. And so they grow up with this negativity about themselves because they weren't good enough for their mom and dad not to argue. They weren't good enough for, you know, I'm just like my dad and all I ever saw my mom and dad do was argue. Versus if there's an ouch word in the house for the family, that a
Mhm.
child could say the ouch word or another parent could say the ouch word, and you realize I need to go back and fix it. I need to apologize. I need to show them that I love them. I need to
Yeah.
show them that this was not love, but this kindness, this I'm sorry, I was wrong. What did I just say? Remind me what I just said out of my mouth so I can correct it. You are not, you're not fat, you're not ugly, whatever it was that I said, and learn how not to use negative words if that's not what you feel. I can tell you this to this very day, at 44 years old, I've been very angry at some people, but I've never called them out of their name. I've
Yeah.
never called them fat, never called them ugly, never said you're no good, because that's not how I feel about you as a person. So I
Mm-hmm.
can't say that to you out of anger. And that's an important thing to me. It's important that what you say in anger is what I did. Not that I am something, but what did I do?
Because you make a valid point when you talk about the words that we use to describe when somebody is doing something, because just because the cultural definition of a word may change doesn't mean the word itself changes, or the
Mm-hmm.
meaning, the original meaning behind that word, the intent
Mm-hmm.
behind that word is
Mm-hmm.
still what it is when the word was created or established or what have you.
Absolutely.
And so when
Absolutely.
we say things to, like, somebody is slaying, are they actually, it's, what are they killing? Are you murdering? Who are you murdering? Like, it was, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been guilty of using those terms
Me
because it's
too.
cultural.
Me
Because,
too.
and we
Me
don't
too.
think about it, you know?
Me too. Mm-hmm.
We don't
Mm-hmm.
think about those things, but it does kind of bring something to our awareness about, oh, maybe I can just leave it at "you look pretty" and move
Mm-hmm.
on. Like, we can
Mm-hmm.
we can go back to
Mm-hmm.
that. It's okay.
Right. Use the words that were meant
Yeah.
to explain those things, so
Yeah.
that our children understand what beauty means. They understand
Yeah.
what love means. They
Yeah.
understand what gorgeous means. They don't know what these
Mhm.
words mean, because
Yeah.
we use "you're bad" and "ooh, you're bad." We use the same word. And so
Mhm.
they're confused. They're like, well, what else? What other word could I use? And sometimes we don't know how to substitute it. So if we started using pretty again, we try to use, we want to create these supernatural words to describe our natural, the natural things about us. But just like sometimes we can't, there's no word to describe God, but there are words to describe what God created. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
there's beauty, and the
Yes.
beauty for ashes.
Yes.
It's in his word. He didn't
Mhm.
say, when the word was used that said bad, when God said something was bad, that means it was no good for you.
Right.
And that's how it needs to stay. But when God
Mhm.
said something was good, or he said something was pretty, or he said something was gorgeous, it meant that.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. And
And so
that's what,
we've complicated things.
yes, we
And
have.
so now I don't know if you're saying that me as a person is bad. Are you saying that me as a person
Touche. Touche.
is bad? Is that what you're saying? I'm bad? What did I do?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
It gets complicated.
that's definitely, yeah, it is complicated, and it's definitely something that we all, I think, need to re-examine and to think about.
Absolutely.
Um and
Absolutely.
and then just to kind of go back to some of the earlier things we talked about too. Um you were in a relationship with someone who was abusive, both verbally, emotionally, mentally, and physically. And somehow in all of that muck and mire was birthed this wonderful work of self-love that we've been talking about the entire time. But I do kind of want to delve a little bit into the study and how it was conducted behind this
Absolutely.
work. And then also, what were some of your findings? Because something else you talked about as well was pain, and how we have to tend to the things that cause that pain. So in working with people, did you have to help them deal with their pain? Well, let's just backtrack a little bit. Who did you conduct the study with, and how was it done?
Okay, so my context was my home church. And
Okay.
what I did is just put a flyer out saying, I'm doing the study in regards to African American women. And it started out before the final, because it went through a lot of changes. It was
Mhm.
about self-esteem. It started out with self-esteem.
Okay.
And so I had a group of women, and I just announced it for a few weeks and had this meeting on this one day. And whoever showed up was who participated in it. So they did an initial survey, and the last question, most of the questions in the survey was about how they feel about themselves. Do they feel like they're the life of the party? Do they feel like, you know, when they're alone, they feel better than when they're in a group of people, just things like that. And it
Mm-hmm.
asked questions that answered how they felt about themselves, as well as how they thought other people felt about them.
Mm-hmm.
Then the project itself, they were given a jar. The jar had 30 different strips of paper in it that had different, some of it was scripture, some of it was songs like Fight Song and I'm Every Woman, things like that. And then there were some phrases, some sayings in there, like the famous one from The Help, You Are Kind,
And
you
you
know,
was
that one.
smart and you was
Yes,
important.
yes, yes. And so things that, you know, were prominent, but also would cause some thought. And they were asked just to pull a strip each day.
Yeah.
And as they were going out through their day to process it, think about it. If something bad happened, to think on that. And hopefully it would turn around how they felt, you know, something to forcibly make them think something positive during the day. And then they also had a journal. And in this journal, they could journal daily. They could write a paragraph. They could write in prose. They could put a poem, write a song, draw a picture, whatever they felt like they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Once it was all over, they handed that back in.
Okay.
So when I initially set this up, I did not set it up with a follow-up meeting. And in hindsight, I really wish I had,
Mm.
because when I first received everything back, the journals and everything from the women, it was deep. Like, I could tell the difference from when they started to when they ended. Some of them shared some very personal things with me.
For sure.
When we met together, I shared my story. You know, I shared how I
Mm-hmm.
got to this work and why I was doing it. And one of the participants was like, oh my gosh, the things I'm about to share with you, I've never put on paper before. And it blew my mind, because it just happened that everyone that participated, I knew them very well. We had been in church together all of our lives, which I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to get some folk that, you know, may not have been in my home church all
Mm-hmm.
my life. It happened that all of them that participated were in my home church, and they ranged from 20 to 60.
Okay.
So I had some
Oh,
in each of
nice.
the
Okay.
age groups. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was interesting too. And one of the main things I expected to find was that the younger generations would have a lower self-esteem or a lower self-confidence, right?
Okay.
Not the case. The youngest person that I had on it was like a rock star. She really
Wow.
knew herself well, loved herself. There were things about her that she loved. What I found in this though is that what most of us do, when they got to these phrases about them being important or them being fearfully and wonderfully made, the Proverbs 31 was in there. When we
Mm-hmm.
got to the Proverb 31, most of them talked about someone else in their life that they knew that fit that, and how they wished that one day they would. And I sat there as I read it, and I was like, oh my gosh, to me all these women fit these characteristics, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And it made me feel some type of way, because I was just like, wow, they don't see this in themselves. And I'm just like, I totally see this in them. So, and it was like that for a lot of the writing that they did. They could see how they wanted to be like these other people.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, before I dug deeper into self-esteem, I was like, well, their self-esteem really isn't that high. But then I learned that the imitation or sharing about other people that you see characteristics that you want to be like doesn't necessarily mean you have low self-esteem. It
Mm-hmm.
means that you can see where there are areas of improvement possibly,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't mean that you don't think you can ever get there. You're just not there right now. And so the other thing that the writing showed me is I should have let them choose their own encouraging things each day. Like, I don't think I taught them
Mm-hmm.
to encourage themselves. Like, I still had them rely on a crutch, which was whatever I gave them.
Okay.
And so I think if they were able to choose their own songs, because one of my people, there were a couple of things in there. She was just like, yeah, I don't like this. And the only reason I don't like it is because I don't like saying these positive things to myself. And I'd
Mm-hmm.
rather have said something else, not quite this positive to myself, or I'm not used to encouraging myself in this way. But she also introduced me to Lizzo. I had not heard of Lizzo,
Okay.
and went and listened to Lizzo after reading her journal. And I understood. just hearing Lizzo's songs and understanding why she could relate. The other thing was that, and it was confirmed, that most of us don't look at ourselves in a positive way.
Mm-mm. No.
Most of us don't see how great we are.
Mm.
Most of us don't see how valuable we are. And most of us
Mm-hmm.
are used and abused by our families and friends.
Mm. And that doesn't
Every single
necessarily
one of them.
and that doesn't necessarily mean like they're hitting us or anything like that.
No, 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 no. It means that if we don't do what our families ask us to, we feel bad.
Mm.
And our families have a way of saying, Krissy, can you go to the store? And I'm like, I can't go to the store right now. Can I go in an hour? Well, I really need you to go right now because I need to make
Mm-hmm.
a cake right now. And if you don't go right
Right.
now, I'm not gonna be able to make it on time. And then I feel bad and feel guilty because I'm in the middle of doing something else, or because I tell you no, that
Mm.
I can't do it, or I don't want to do it. And then you try to guilt me into doing whatever it is, or they're the rock for the family, which
Mm-hmm.
means when the family is falling apart, I can't fall apart with them because everybody's coming to me and
Yeah.
everybody wants to talk to me. And so I
Mm-hmm.
have to be the mediator and bring everyone together. Or when there's a death in the family, everybody else gets to cry and I don't get to cry. I
Mm.
have to be strong because everybody else wants to break down. And so since I'm the strong person, I have to be the strong person now
Mm-hmm.
as well. And you feel bad, and we don't look at it as abuse because it's our family. This is what we're supposed to do. Or they're
Right.
our best friends. This is how we're supposed to be. But it is a form of abuse. It's not a I'm hitting you abuse, and it's not. But it hurts to say that. It really hurts to say that. But
Yeah.
it's abuse
Yeah.
when and again I use myself as a people pleaser. Being a people pleaser, you I set myself up to be abused because anything you ask me to do, I'm going to do because I don't want your feelings to be hurt. I don't
Yeah.
want you to be sad. I'd rather be in pain than you to be in pain. So what do I do about my pain?
Mm-hmm.
What do I do about my disappointment? What do
Yeah.
I do when I'm let down? I keep it to myself because I don't want to say anything to you because I don't want you to hurt. And you know that. You
Mm. Yeah.
know that I'm
Yeah.
that person.
Yeah.
So you know that if I say no and you make me feel guilty about it, or you give me a sad face, or you're not going to call me for 2 days because I didn't do what you asked me to do, then I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do it because I
Or you're
know
going
if
to
you don't
guilt
call
trip
me, there's
me.
something wrong. Something is
Mm-hmm.
wrong. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a form of abuse.
Yeah.
That's a form of abuse. I
Yeah.
probably would not have said this 5 years ago, but I will
Mm-hmm.
sure as long tell you this going forward, that it is a form of abuse.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because I have money in my savings account that's sitting in my savings account for me to use on a rainy day, and you know it, doesn't mean I'm supposed to spend it on something because you got yourself into an issue.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, I do have it.
And for some people those would be fighting words. Those would
Yeah.
be words that, we need to sever our relationship forever because you won't do what
Mm-hmm.
it is that I
Mm-hmm.
need you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and then the person inflicting that pain will in turn make it so that you're wrong because you
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't do these things, this list of things
Mm-hmm.
that I'm asking you to do.
Mm-hmm. And then let's kick it up a notch. But you're a minister. But
Right.
you go to church every Sunday. But you
Right.
sit on the choir. You're
Mhm.
supposed to aren't you supposed to help the people? Aren't you
Yeah.
supposed to do whatever anybody needs you to do? And I was that person.
Mhm.
I was that person
Mhm.
that, my in my head, I'm screaming no, but I'm doing it. And I'm staying up late while you're asleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're asleep, and I'm in the
Yeah.
office typing up your paper for you while
Mm.
you're sleeping
Mm.
and going out and hanging out with your friends and doing whatever because it's going to take me too long to type because I don't type as fast as you type.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So
Yeah.
so just kind of going back a little bit, there was a you talked about how you know met with these people and they did the writings and all of that. And they dealt with their pain and looking at how at their pain. But there are a lot of people out there who may be watching this conversation who have pain that they don't know how to reconcile and know how to deal with it. What are and then also just the whole thing of like learning to love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What are some, I don't know, I don't think there's a tip or trick that, speed tracks you to this, but
There's
what are
not.
some things that we could possibly do starting today, that could help us to foster a healthy form of self-love and not the narcissistic type?
Choose yourself every day. And
Mm,
by that, I mean, when you get up in the morning, choose to say, I love you to yourself. Choose to look yourself in the mirror and say, I love you, Krissy. I love your eyes. I love your nose. If that means you've got to point out specific things, choose you. When you get up in the morning, most of us either hit social media, we start making a list of what we're going to do that day, all these types of things. For me, my first thing that I do when I open my eyes, I roll over on my bed, pick up my phone, and look at my YouVersion app and see what the scripture is for the day. And then that's the scripture that I speak to myself. I replace my name if it's one that can do that I can do it with. I replace my name in it because it reminds me of who I am in God, and I've decided to choose myself. And if I walk in the bathroom and I got a bruise, a hit, or something on my face, I acknowledge it. And then I move on to everything else about me that I like, that I love, that is beautiful, that
mhm,
is God created, so
mhm,
that I'm reminded first thing in the morning of whose I am. And that's not for everybody, but you have to figure out how to choose you from the very first moment in the day, every day. just
mhm,
like just like learning God, right?
mhm,
We can't, if we stop one day, if we decide, okay, I'm going to read my Bible every day, well, today I'm not going to read my Bible, I'm just going to put it to the side. Then eventually I do it 2 days in a row, eventually 3 days in a row, and eventually it's been a month before I read it again, right? And
mhm,
I've kind of lost some contact, I've lost something that I needed in reading God's word and putting it in my heart.
mhm,
Well, I got to do the same thing with me. In order to put me in my heart, I've got to talk to me. I've got to love me. But I've got to do it every day, because the day that I choose not to choose me, then I allow something else to get in, and I
mm,
allow something else to decide how I feel about me that day.
mhm.
And I may have to do this throughout the day,
Yeah.
especially if it's an emotional time for me. Like when I
Yes.
get closer to Mother's Day, I had to remind myself that just because my mom isn't here doesn't mean that somebody doesn't still love me, because I love me. I love me,
Mhm.
you know? And I
Mhm.
find out how to smile every day. But the main thing is choosing yourself every day. You have
Mhm.
to choose you every day. You can't skip a day. Because if you skip a day of choosing yourself and you decide that today I'm gonna let somebody else figure out how I'm gonna do and how I'm gonna operate, then it becomes day after day after day after day. And soon you're not thinking for yourself. You're not making decisions for yourself. You're lost again.
Yeah.
And you're doing what everybody else wants you to do. And they're pulling and pushing and piling it on and piling on mentally and physically. And sometimes there are some of us who've got extra adipose tissue. And I keep coming back to adipose tissue. My sister-in-law, Lanika, love her to life, introduced me to that word. I will use it till the day I die, because I had to learn that I am not fat. I have fat, which is AKA adipose tissue. I have it, but that's not who I am. I'm
Mhm.
so much more than what you see and what you
Yeah.
think because you're looking at me. But more than that, I'm so much more than what I used to think about me. So
Yeah.
I have to change my thought process, and I have to choose me every single day. Choosing me does not mean that I'm better than anybody else.
Mhm.
Choosing me does not mean that you are not important anymore. Choosing me does not mean that I'm always right. But what it does mean is, if it comes down to me and my life and a decision that I have to make, and if I make a different decision, then your life is going to be one, and I'm going to be suffering in misery because now I think less of myself. I have to choose me.
Yes. Yes.
If it's going to cause me to think less about me, I have to choose me,
Yes. Yeah.
regardless, no matter what. But it doesn't make you any less. And that's the difference between self-love and the redemptive agency and the narcissism, is because me choosing me as a narcissist means that you ain't nothing, you ain't never gonna be nothing, you ain't never gonna amount to nothing. But me choosing me
Mm.
as redemptive love, as redemptive agency, as it's up to me to love me,
Mm-hmm.
means that I can love myself unconditionally, and I have enough love bubbling over that I can love you the same way that you love yourself. And
Yes.
I want you to choose you. I want you to choose you. If I say, choose me, because if you don't choose me, my feelings are going to be hurt, then I need you to choose you. Because if you choose me and don't choose yourself, you're going to hurt longer than I am. I'm going to get over it. And I'm going to come back looking for you tomorrow. And you're still going to be talking to yourself saying, well, I didn't choose me, so I'm not good enough. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
you are. You are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm good enough. Tiffany's good enough. Anybody else watching this, you're good enough. And we can all be good enough in our own ways. I think I've shared this with you before
Mm-hmm.
in another conversation, but that hashtag, I got something that's better than yours.
Yeah.
No, because yours is yours and mine is mine. You know,
Yes.
we sing these songs all the time, and I come back to Yolanda Adams. What God has for me is for me. And if God doesn't have what you have for me, then your last name is Jones. My last name is Anderson. Your last name is Coleman. What God has for Miss Coleman, God has for Miss Coleman. You have it. Because I may not want to go through what you went through to get what you got.
Mm-hmm.
What God has for me, I've already been through my struggles. I don't want to go through it no more because
Listen
I want a
here.
car that
Listen
Tiffany's
here.
driving. I got my own car, you know? You know, I'll tell you, I'll share something funny with you. When I first started preaching, which has been 10 years,
Wow.
and one of my sermons, I shared that at that time I was 35.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you know, I thought I'd be married with my own house, my own car, and kids of my own. And God brought this revelation to me right there in the midst of my sermon. He said, I'm sorry, you might be living at home with your parents, but you live in a house. You pay
Mm-hmm.
bills, you're helping just like you would with your own. You do have your own car that you pay your own car note for. He said, you got a church full of kids that treat you like you their mama. So you got your own kids. What is it? What is it that you want? Everything you have by 35, you have. The only thing that's missing is you don't have a husband, and I got that for you too. But let me tell you something, y'all. When God prick you and say don't do it, don't do it, okay?
Mm-mm.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Loving yourself means not settling just to have.
Mm.
And it
Mm.
hurts sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It hurts sometimes not to settle. But not settling and not lowering your standards just because you don't think you can, because you don't love yourself enough, nah. You'll find that you are so much more miserable than if you just hang in there. And before you give up, just know that you are worth everything that you're holding out for. You're
Mm.
worth everything that you're waiting for.
Yeah.
Every promise he gave. You
Yeah.
know, we sing it,
Yeah.
we say it, we read it, but we don't live it.
We
I
don't.
had to learn to live that I'm worth that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is so wonderful. That is so wonderful. And it seems like this whole idea of self-love really comes down to, like you were saying, choosing ourselves every time.
Every time.
Every time.
Every time.
And the narcissistic part of it is dismissing everybody else
It's dismissing everybody
and
else.
everything
That
else
and
ultimately.
yes. And if I can make you take the blame for it, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to. I'm
Mm-hmm.
100% wrong. But I'm
Yeah.
going to figure out how to make you feel like you're the one that wrong so that you feel bad and I can keep doing what I'm doing that's just as wrong as the day is long.
That sounds like
Yes.
mania in my mind. It sounds
Yes.
like mania.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Complete insanity. Let's
Oh
just
my
do the same
gosh.
thing over and over again and see what different
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
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 Not
Yeah.
settling and
Choosing yourself.
choosing yourself are the two are two
The
parts
two
of
big
it.
things. Hmm.
Yeah, two
Yes, you
two
have
big things.
to choose yourself
Yes.
regardless
Yes.
every day. Every day. Hmm.
This has been such a great discussion, and I hope that people will see the value in this, and it charges people to do the work that it takes
Yes,
to choose ourselves
yes,
every day, because it's a daily thing. It's not just something that you will come upon and it'll just be great and wonderful and the end. It's an ongoing process. It's
yes.
an ongoing process.
Self-help books don't work because we read the self-help book and then we
Mhm.
put it down. We don't continue to practice what the self-help book says every day. People who successfully get out of debt stay out of debt because they constantly put into practice the things they learned about staying out of debt. They do it
Right.
every single day,
Right.
every single decision. It's the
Mhm.
same way. Every single decision you make has to be because you are choosing yourself. Every single decision. So if you're going to fight hard to stay out of debt, you're going to fight hard to save up for that house, you're going to fight hard to save for that car, for that vacation, you should be fighting triple as hard for yourself.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a series of things that need to be done. Just like
Mm-hmm.
you would for like it to stay to pay for that vacation. That means you're
Mm-hmm.
not going out to get
Mm-hmm.
those $5 coffees you get every morning. That you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to have
Mm-hmm.
lunch and dinner with friends and spend $30, $40 for that one
Mm-hmm.
time. It means
Mm-hmm.
you're going to cook more at home. It means you're going to do, there's a
Mm-hmm.
set of things, just like when you
Mm-hmm.
say when we talk about self-love, we need to start having positive self-affirmation going on instead of that negative
Yes.
chatter that we
Yes.
have so much all the time, and being around people who affirm us, not people who are just like, oh, you're so wonderful, you're so this, you're so
Yes.
that. We need people who
Yes.
be like, yes, you are wonderful, yes, you are this, but you can clean this up and you can clean that up. It's a balance.
And people that around you that when you say, oh man, I'm so stupid, they say, no, 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 no. What you did may be stupid, but you in and of yourself, you're not stupid.
Exactly. Who will call
Mm-hmm.
you out on that stuff? Who will call you
Yes.
out? It's not
Yes.
bad to have friends who call you out on different
No,
things.
no, not at all.
Yeah,
Not at all.
yeah.
Not at all.
And again, these are things and exercises and things we must do daily in order to
Daily
love
and
ourselves.
several times a day. And if
Mhm.
that means you have to write it on your calendar, listen, start simple. If that means that while you brushing your teeth, you create your own 2-minute song about you, about the positive things about you, then that's a solid 2 minutes you spent encouraging you for your day. You're gonna brush your
I
teeth
love
every
it.
day, hopefully 2, 3 times a day, but
Mm, a
a
minimum of two.
minimum of two, So,
Right.
how can you incorporate this on a regular basis? Because you have to do it
Yeah.
every day. You
Yeah.
can't just say, I'm going to do this Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, because on Tuesday and Thursday, somebody going to get at you and they're going to be
Yeah.
like, ooh, let me take. And listen, I am a proponent of therapy.
Yes.
Okay.
We are
Talking to people.
proponents of
I
therapy
am
on this
a
show.
proponent of
Yes.
therapy. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And
Yes.
sitting in, it was the therapist that asked me, did I love myself? And they helped me to understand that I did not.
Mm.
Okay. That the things I was doing was not because I
Mhm.
loved me. It
Mhm.
was because I wanted other people to love me, but they couldn't love me the way they wanted to because I wouldn't let them get close enough because I didn't love me.
That's so interesting because I have a therapist that I honestly need to get back in touch with. But one of the things that she called me out of, called me out on rather, is that we were having a session and it was an emotional session that day. And she was like, I hear you talking about all the stuff that you do, all the places you've been, you show up for people and this, that, and the third. But then she's
I do
like,
show up for
why
myself.
don't you show up for yourself?
That was the question. Yes,
And
ma'am.
of course, when she asked me that question, it hit me in between the eyes. Like it just and then like I had nerves to clutch my pearls and be like, well, what do you mean I don't show up for myself? I love my She was like, no, you don't, because you don't show up for yourself. You don't
Yes,
take a gamble on yourself.
the
You
question, girl.
never
Woo!
do. You never
Woo!
do. And she was so right. She was
Yes.
so right. And it's honestly, that was probably maybe a year and a half ago. And of course, with all the COVID-19 and quarantine, you have nothing but time. And it has caused me to really, really put some weight on that and
Mm-hmm,
to
mm-hmm,
really think about that. Why don't I take a gamble on myself? I
mm-hmm,
gamble on
mm-hmm.
everybody else and lose big, lose hugely. Why don't I
You
take a chance and
and
and gamble on myself?
the thing about it is you think you're gonna lose hugely until you realize you're winning.
Yeah, yeah,
Because today I realize I'm winning.
yes,
It hurt at first. But the
yes.
reason why it hurt is because I wasn't used to choosing myself. And I
Mm,
felt like I was letting other people down. But I've let myself down for so many years,
repeatedly.
repeatedly. And in
Yeah.
all honesty, somewhere in there, I was letting God down too. Because
Mm,
God has so much more for me. He had so much more He wanted me to accomplish and to do. And I couldn't because I was worried about what everybody else would think. If I had never stepped out into ministry, I don't
mhm,
know where I would be today. I don't
mhm.
know who I would be today. Like, I totally feel like I would be somebody's, I don't know, run to the store, girl. Go get what I told you to get. I just can't fathom. I cannot fathom where I would be. And I'll tell anybody, sure as the day is long, the greatest gift my parents gave me, both my mother and my father, was they made me have a personal relationship. Because were it not for that relationship, I wouldn't have been able to choose me, because I
Mhm.
wouldn't have been able to stand on my feet if I didn't have these other people that surrounded me when I chose to do what everybody else wanted. And let
Yeah.
me tell you, choosing everybody else instead of yourself, you'll find yourself in debt,
Mm,
trying to get out of it, and nobody else to help you get out of it, but they help you
mhm,
create it, right?
mhm.
And so there are a lot of things that we have to reevaluate. Where am I right now in life? Is my credit bad because I use my credit to do stuff for everybody else and they going on with their life and I'm still the one responsible?
Yeah.
There's so many other aspects of my life that are affected, that I am dealing with the consequences of it now, that I can actually see clearly what
Yeah.
I did. And so I'm working on it. But the best part about it is I love me while I'm working on it. I'm not beating myself up this whole time talking about, you was just stupid, look at what you did. No, I made mistakes and I made decisions based on what other people wanted from me. And now I'm making the decisions based on me. And I'll tell anybody who's watching this, you gonna lose everybody, and then folks gonna come back and realize that it was you that they loved and not the things that you did. But you will lose everybody.
Mm,
Like, some people are like, you're gonna lose most of your people. Nah, I lost everybody for a minute.
mm.
Everybody. But there are folks who came back because they realized it was actually me they liked and not the things that I was doing for them.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I don't think we think about the fact that we don't love ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
costing other people and costing us people. We don't think about that as
Mm-hmm.
well. That the fact that you don't love yourself can also cost other people things as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's important that we do this, because even if you think on a larger scale, and time is running short, so I'm going to try to, nail it down a little bit. But even on a larger scale, think about, like, I feel like a lot of what we talk about on social media and things that are done on social media all come back to a lack of self-love. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that we post pictures of ourselves and all of this stuff, it's narcissism, and it's not narcissism. I'm trying to show you that I'm amazing and wonderful, but not because I want to do it for myself, is that I have to prove things to all of you haters
Mm-hmm.
out there. And people honestly, they aren't really thinking about you most of the time. They're really
Nope.
um it's just this whole idea that I have to know that I have somebody who's watching in order for
Mm-hmm.
me to feel okay, to feel validated. We look for the red
Mm-hmm.
flag on Facebook, we look for the hearts on Instagram,
Mm-hmm.
when it's really the heart. We need to be dealing with our heart and how we feel about us, instead of looking for all of these outward expressions of self-love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And learning that the clothes don't make me look good. I make the clothes look good. The makeup doesn't make me look
Absolutely.
good. I make the makeup look good. You know,
Exactly.
it would be something hanging in the closet if it didn't come on my body.
For sure.
It would be in its little case if I didn't put it on my face.
For sure.
Right?
For
It couldn't
sure.
be all the beauty that it is on me if I had never put it on me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And honestly, we honestly could take this conversation, I mean, in so many different directions. We may have to do a part two or something. I'm not sure, but we probably should. But this has definitely been a worthwhile conversation, and it has even caused me to go back and think about some of the choices I've made for myself, and even examining those choices, and then choose differently next time.
Yeah.
And so.
Mhm.
Yes, choose me next time. Choose me. I know what the answer is. I just got to do it now.
Yeah. And
Sometimes.
hey, the adage is true. Practice makes perfect. The only way it's gonna become second nature is for you to do it purposely
Yeah.
over and over and over again. If you don't do it purposely over and over again, it is not going to stick. Don't believe that 21-day garbage. Because if on day 22 you stop, it's gonna be over with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to purposely do it until it sticks for you. Some people, yeah, it'll work in 21 days.
Mhm.
But some folk, it's going to take 365 times 15. They're going to have to
Yeah.
do it every day. And look at it this way, right? A person who was an addict becomes a non-addict by choice every day.
Mm.
One choice
Mm.
gets them right back where they were.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. You are right. I feel like thank you is too small, but it's all the only two words that I have. But thank you so
And those are
much.
sufficient. Listen, this was the most amazing thing I've done since I've done this work.
Oh my
To
gosh.
have an
Yeah.
opportunity to talk to someone that is, you know, wasn't a part of it, that wasn't in this process, and to just talk about it and the reality of it. So you kind of you helped me today to flush out, next steps. My next steps. I know I see it, but just
Mhm.
having this conversation just helped my spirit so much, and I could just feel God just being like, yeah, that's your girl Tiffany with that limitlessness. That's your girl. That's why she your girl. Because she's limitless. You see things that nobody else will ever see. It's
Mm,
just wonderful. It's just
mm.
wonderful.
Well, thank
I,
you.
thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate you. I
I
appreciate
appreciate you as well. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us
Thank
and
you.
share with us today. We're definitely gonna have to come back and do something. I don't know what that's gonna look like, but definitely do something. Because I feel like the conversation needs to continue. Just like the work that we do, it needs to continue. And so I will be in touch with you about doing this again at some point. Um, and you are always welcome if you have an idea and you're like, hey, let's do this. I'm like, all right, we'll set it up. We will definitely set it up and make it happen. And this
Thank
has helped
you.
even this conversation, and we've talked before, even
Yeah.
this conversation, there were things that I was like, oh, that's something I may want to think about and deeper as well. So thank you for giving us all things to think about, practices to do, and a way to move forward from here. So thank
My
you so much.
pleasure. Thank you for having me. You all have a great evening.
You too. Take care.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Well, that was a wonderful discussion held with Dr. Krissy Anderson about the importance of self-love and how we all need to take care of ourselves. It's important that we choose self-love because it'll influence everything that we do in our lives. It influences our relationships. It influences even how we interact with ourselves, how we take care of our bodies, how we take care of our minds. Self love is so deep and it goes wide. It's deep and wide. Um, I've been here recently watching the movie A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood with Mr. Rogers. And it's a story about Mr. Rogers and all of that. And as a child, I grew up watching Mr. Rogers. And at the time, I didn't realize what he was honestly talking about. But one thing that he always said to every person watching the program is that you're special. And for a long time, that message was misconstrued and taken, I think, out of context and bred narcissism and all of that. But that wasn't his goal. His goal was to help you to understand and see that you are unique. You're worthwhile. You are not an accident. You were made on purpose. And whether you believe in God or Buddha or have any faith connection, I don't believe we're just bits of protoplasm wandering and skin wandering around on the planet for no reason. I think you were here on purpose for such a time as this. And so the reality is that you are special. No one has your strand of DNA. No one has your fingerprint. That's how they identify you, your fingerprint. They can find you based on a fingerprint. And if somebody puts the wrong finger, if it puts a fingerprint down, they're going to know it's not you. So the fact that everybody's fingerprint is different does mean that you're special. Your DNA makes you special. You are special. You add something to this world. And it all starts with us just being kind to ourselves, not in a narcissistic way, not exalting yourself above everybody else, but loving yourself enough to drink water every day, loving yourself enough to exercise every day, loving yourself enough to get away from people who don't mean you good, who don't better you, who don't empower you, who don't uplift you and encourage you. And I'm not talking about giving you fog, smoke, and mirrors. I'm talking about who help you to see the true intrinsic value in yourself. Because the reality is that after it's all said and done, after, the experiment, as we may want to think of it, is over, only one thing will really matter: how you treated others and how you treated yourself. And the funny thing is both of those are inextricably intertwined. Thank you so much for sharing with me today. I hope that this has been worthwhile, and I hope that that something said or done was encouraging and uplifting, and that you feel like you can keep going. From all of us here at Liberated Media and from the show, Interesting People, Conversations That Heal, we appreciate you. We love you. We thank you for listening and taking time to share with us. Please, please, if you have a moment, just click the button down below and subscribe to the Liberated Media channel for all the so that you can get all the updates and content on content, and whenever it comes out, you'll be the first to know. And share this. Please share this with your friends, family, anybody who needs it, even those who don't need it, or who seem like they don't need it. You'd be surprised. A lot of us all can use a shot in the arm every now and again. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate all of you, and you have been great. So love you. I will see you on the next session of Interesting People. We do have I've got a nurse I'll be chatting with soon. We'll be talking about loving people and embracing people from different faiths. And then we'll also have a wonderful discussion, which I'm very excited about, panel discussion. About clergy and dealing with clergy and the crisis of COVID-19. But I'm going to sign off for now. Take care of yourself, love yourself, and be kind. Thanks. Bye.